Falcom panel. How's the volume? You like it? Yeah, it sounds good to me. At least it's working. So it's a very start of MAGFest. They just had the welcome ceremony. We're in the big ballroom. I'm just happy to see all of you. I'm glad to have you here. We're going to be talking about a really cool developer, Nihon Falcom. Who here has played a Falcom game before, and who here is really excited just to discuss, to learn more. It's great stuff. Really happy. Let's drop music. All right. Anyway. First, I want to give a big shout out to Kirsten Miller, OMG Floofy, who runs the fan site Endless History. She's helped us get some video content. She's done a great job advertising us on Twitter. Just wanted to get as many people who are attending MAGFest in here as possible if they really, really like Falcom or just want to learn more. She wanted to co-host, but she has work and she recently got her job back. I'm really happy for her. I'm glad that she's, doing as well as she is. It's a shame that she's not able to attend, but I understand. It's kind of a long stretch for us to all get out here as well. All right. So we'll introduce ourselves. I'm Leon. You also call me Pasicon Decon. I'm a big Falcom fan. I do some stuff online on the Falcom Discord, which the dude over here helped start and form and run. I'm involved in some music projects with Falcom fan artists already, and I'm also just working on the panel here.
Hi. Hello. I'm Nate. I'm known as Ribos. I created the Falcom Discord, and I'm just a big Falcom fan myself, like you.
I'm Henry, also known as Bumpmaster. I've been a part of the fan community for a while now, and I collect a lot of Falcom's OSTs, love their music and games.
That's about it, really. Ribos didn't mention it, but he's also involved with editing, do some editing and programming work for a number of fan translation projects. We're all kind of just moving in and out of different things in the community, never really too deep, but we know some people who have been doing amazing things in the community, and we'll vouch for them every time. We're really proud of them. And we gotta move on. We gotta talk about Falcom. What is Falcom?
Panel.
Yeah, it's a panel. What is Falcom? Well, this 4 slides tell you everything. It's vibrant, colorful action RPG and regular kind of Japanese RPG goodness. They're more than that just, though. They've been around for more than 30 years. They've been doing a whole variety of genres and different styles of games. They started out as just this little computer shop, and they became this big thing. And a lot of us in the West, outside of East Asia, didn't really know about Falcom until certain things happened, certain games came over, and certain big things, just kind of exploded in popularity, like their music. If I had to really describe them in one key word, it would be consistency.
Yeah, that's my big thing with their games, is that they have very in-depth worlds with interesting storytelling, as well as, of course, the main thing that you want is games that are fun to play, and that's kind of what they do with their very solid gameplay and experimental gameplay sometimes.
Great lore, interconnected worlds, great music. There's a lot they do really good.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And you'll see that's the current mascot. I point that out because they've had a previous mascot. It was a bunny. It was for a pretty obscure Windows game we might mention later. Michi is their favorite mascot of now.
Michi is from Zero no Kiseki and has been their mascot ever since around 2010-ish.
Michi!
It's
not Mickey, it's Cat Mickey.
Yeah,
there's a difference.
Yeah, it's Cat Mickey. It's just a cat thing, I guess. And they have like on their Twitter sometimes they put images of someone who's like dressed up like a mascot character as Michi.
They are not indie. I've seen a video about one of their games, Trails of Cold Steel, that has the headline, how a Japanese indie company did world building better than some other company. And I thought to myself, well, they're not indie, they're middle market. They've kind of been in the middle, and they're not a very large, but they're not a very small studio.
Yeah, I mean, they're 34 years old? 30 what?
36,
36.
Since 81. They've been making games for about 34 years since 1982. Not getting my maths right, it's okay. We'll get it better. They have 40 active developers around that number.
Yeah,
and they build
I think
these.
it's more like 50 now, but it's not really. Oh, is it?
It's 50. It's
Like
50
employees?
employees.
52.
52. They're always kind of going up and down. It's hard to get hired there. It's hard to leave there too. It's consistent. It's a steady job. You gotta work hard, and they work hard. They do yearly releases. It's actually pretty incredible. Pretty incredible how they manage to do so many big games for every year, and they have ways to get around it. They're noticeable, but it's still impressive. We're gonna move on to the next slide. So their history, in a nutshell, I kind of went over the steps, but they started as a computer shop in 1981. Their president and founder, Masayuki Kato, he was originally a programmer working in Thailand. And when he came back to Japan around the turn of the decade, he figured, well, Japanese PCs are kind of getting popular. This was a period when you had PCs like NEC's PC-88, the Fujitsu FM7, the Sharp X1. They were big machines that were notable over there, and they're really the main thing to get in Japan, but they weren't having to compete with Western computers like the Commodore 64, the Atari machines, and Apple computers. Now, I say that, but Falcom started as an Apple shop and transitioned towards Japanese PCs. Eventually, they started to, in 1982, publish games developed by the regulars of that shop. The very first game, Galactic Wars, was a sci-fi war game developed by a man named Yoshio Kiya. Yoshio Kiya went on to become their big programmer up until 1994. And so he and other just hobbyists were going up to Kato and saying, hey, I made this game. Could you publish it for me? And so they made a box and just put it on the store shelves because that worked. In 1984, Dragon Slayer came out. That was their first big action RPG. It was released alongside Highlight and Namco's Tower of Juraga. This is when ARPGs were becoming a big, big thing in Japan. The idea of putting the action and the stat-heavy exploration, dungeon crawling stuff together. Yoshio Kiya had come up with this really weird top-down maze game-like Dragon Slayer action RPG. And it was successful. Not that successful. It needed to be a bit more successful. They made a sequel, Dragon Slayer 2 Xanadu, in 1985. That game sold 400,000 copies boxed in the 1980s. Way more than any other Japanese PC game of the vintage. Falcom exploded in popularity. Xanadu exploded in popularity, and Falcom had to take advantage of that. They made more ARPGs. They made Romancia, Sorcerian, Legacy of the Wizard on the NES. Yep, it got ported to the Famicom and MSX2 as well. That's why we know about that one in particular. And Ys 1 in 1987. Very first Ys, and Legacy of the Wizard and Sorcerian, which we need a localization of. In the same year, they never had that many significant releases in 1 year. They became a pillar of the Japanese PC industry and community. Even nowadays, if you go to a big box store and you're looking for Japanese PC games, you'll see either porn games or Falcom box games, because Falcom is that much of a quantity. You'll also see Koei games.
Yeah,
Koei is also...
They're not porn.
No. I mean, Falcom made a porn game in 1984. And that was the last, and 1985.
You mean Private Stripper?
Yeah, they called it that. They don't have that listed on their own museum history anymore because it's embarrassing. They got past that. They made the Dragon Slayer franchise a lot bigger. Look at that big infographic. That's 7 or 8 different franchises under one big umbrella. The games
yeah,
are all
Dragon Slayer.
Yeah, they're all designed or programmed or led by Yoshio Kiya. Alongside that, Ys 1 was a really big success. The developers of that game went on to make the sequel, and then they left. And then Falcom realized they had a big success. They needed to build a company around games like Wanderers from Ys 3 in 1989. We got that on Super NES, Sega Genesis, and TurboGrafx 16 CD, PC Engine CD. We would continue to get Ys games from overseas all the time, but a lot of their own games in the early 1990s, which were published for the PC-98, the NEC PC-98 using mouse and other controls. We didn't get those, or we got ports of them. Powerful Mail on Sega CD, for example, that was a big thing when it came to the US, localized by Working Designs. We got, well, during the mid-90s, Falcom kind of retreated a bit. They started to work just for Windows, and in 1986, they published the last PC-98 games. They made a lot more war games and simulation games that would appeal kind of to the people who were doing their office work, also wanting like a time waster, an easy game they can load up on a really cheap or simple PC. And so that's kind of the audience they had to design around in the late 1990s and the early 2000s. The early 2000s was kind of a pivotal period for them, though. That's when President Masayuki Kato had seen enough of the really talented employees going on to do better things, leaving Falcom to start their own studios and doing incredible work on their own. He saw that Falcom needed to modernize a little bit. They reorganized. They started, making more promotion for their internal employees. They really formed more of an identity as a studio, as a developer. They started putting out games like East 6, the Arkham the Piston, which was a really big success and brought East back kind of from the brink when in 1995, East 5 on Super Famicom didn't do too well. Their foray into console development in the mid-90s was fruitful, but not commercially successful. They got past that. They worked past it.
Xanadu Next and things like that around then too.
Yeah, they started experimenting with their PC games, the Windows stuff, whenever they could. That led to the really modern, successful Trails series of games diverging from the previous Legend of Heroes
that should be up there somewhere.
Yeah, and Legend of Heroes is Dragon Slayer, but Trails is not. It's kind of complex. We're just getting into the nuts and bolts here. I will mention the conservative business style means that they're very tight-lipped about games in development. Famously, they're kind of known for denying licensors from looking at their games' scripts until they've released the games in Japan. So that's why when we have to wait for English localizations more often than we should, because they're very like that.
They're
to all
very
licensors.
Conservative in that regard.
Yeah, and they're difficult to join as a company. They're very hardworking and kind of group-oriented. They're very polite and formal, and all the people working there are pretty much fans. They're very fan-oriented in nature, even if. Yeah. Some of the notable people I can mention. That's on the left, Masayuki Kato, the founder. He's getting old. He still does some work with Falcom, and he's a major shareholder. That's how he gets his retirement money. In the middle, that leads us to.
Toshihiro Kondo, the current president of Falcom. It's an interesting story how he actually became president. He at his college, he put up a fan site for Legend of Heroes 3 White Witch, and it got so much traffic and so much attention, and he eventually applied for Falcom, and he became one of them.
At first he wanted to go into accounting or whatever, and the other people at Falcom were like, you don't look like someone who does accounting, and so he ended up doing web-related stuff for them, like the website, and then
he's also very young for a company president.
From there he worked his way into working with the developers to get better feedback for making better and he would give feedback to the development team about what would work in their games or whatever, and then eventually he went made his way to development, and
now he's president.
Yeah,
he's not officially president, but he's the outward PR president in layman's terms. The company selected him to be their face. He does all the interviews. He does a lot of development lead himself, including especially writing. He's a big writer. And so he's become the face of the company in that respect.
Yeah.
On right, you have the leader of the sound team. She doesn't compose anymore, but her name is Miyako Ishikawa. She was the first internal musician. Yuzo Shiro, who is second from left on the bottom, was the first big Falcom composer and musician.
Yeah.
He's really
East
big
1
these
and 2
days.
and Sorcerian were what he did for Falcom.
And then East 2. He struck out on his own, and that left Miyako Ishikawa behind to start Sound Team JDK, the internal sound team. Nowadays, she's also managing marketing and design. So that means she's kind of doing a lot of stuff managing the company. She's just one example. There's also Takayuki Kusano, who leads the actual game design team, and he's responsible for directing games like Oath and Felghana, Xanadu Next, and most recently Ys 8, which have all gone rave reviews. They are some of the best games that I can think of from the company. On the left, on the bottom, we've got former employees who went on to really graduate and do big things. That's Tetsuya Takahashi on the bottom left. Xenoblade, Xenogears, Xenosaga. He's led Monolith Soft for ages. He and the rest of the teams he's worked with have done amazing work just wherever they go. He also worked with the former Falcom character artist Kunihiko Tanaka, who did the character designs for Powerful Mail. They have Yuzo Koshiro. He's gone on to do so much.
Yeah, Etrian Odysseys, would I know
Yeah.
Koshiro for?
Streets of Rage, if you've heard of that.
In the middle
Yeah.
is someone rather curious, Makoto Shinkai, who just recently did the huge successful anime movie, Your Name. He was originally a graphic artist and cutscene make designer at Falcom before he left. He actually was working with a former Falcom musician, Atsushi Shirakawa, aka Tenmon, and they just collaborated and did these amazing anime productions, or really impressive at least. Second from right, we have one of the former Falcom artists. She does art for games like Rune Factory, and she's done a lot of work in visual novels and light novels. She's Minako Iwasaki. She did a lot of Falcom art and also a little stint of Atlas in the mid-90s. She and other former artists and musicians have graduated from Falcom. They've done a wide variety of things. I really want to get them more well-known. On the right, we have another example of that, Tomonobu Miyazaki, who was the main writer for Quintet. He wrote games like ActRaiser, Illusion of Gaia, Terranigma. He and Masaya Hashimoto were the creators of Ys 1, and they had a big part in Ys 2. And so they went on to work with Koshiro and others on games like Terranigma, and just really kind of define the zeitgeist of Super Famicom, Super NES action RPGs. That brings us to the E series. I mean, we've got the basic premise on the left. Al Christian arrives in the island of Asteria. He's just this young 16-year-old with a will for adventure, really bad and great luck at the same time. And he meets these goddesses, so to speak. Are they goddesses? Are they not? You find out. And you eventually make it up to the floating kingdom of Ys, where you find this rich history and tapestry of people trying to keep on doing their ancient kingdom lives. But everything is just kind of coming together. There's a modern world now. He's exploring it. He's going from kingdom to kingdom, from land to land. He gets involved in local troubles. He saves the local people. He ends up fighting weird, eldritch things. There's just a huge variety of adventures he goes on. This series is all about fast-paced, somewhat complex,
action,
but accessible, stat-heavy action and adventuring. So you've got on top right, you've got a screen from Ys, Memories of Celceta. That's about in the middle of the modern trilogy of Ys games that are based around a party system. Ys, Adol, and two other characters fight at the same time against a wide variety of enemies. And that means you choose characters based on how easily they can attack or how effectively they can attack certain enemies. I have bottom middle, that's a pick from Ys Origin. That's from the middle trilogy, the mid-2000s trilogy of Ys games that are all about just one character up against the world, fighting these hordes of enemies and big boss fights. They're generally more challenging, and they're quicker to get started. They certainly have their weaknesses and advantages over games both older and newer than that.
Origin in particular is the only one without Adol because it's set 700 years in the past, but otherwise it is Adol.
Whoops. All right, we're still on the panel.
Nothing.
Sorry about that. And then we have just a pick from Ys Chronicles right above that. Ys Chronicles is up on Steam and on PSP. You can get it on PS Vita. It's the old school game. Ys 1 and 2 Chronicles is the top-down 2D overhead stuff we all know and love. It's got the controversial bump system. You just ram enemies. You just ram them at an angle and hope for the best. Don't die. Run away quick if you get hit.
You don't have to press any buttons to actually play. You just use the stick.
That makes it really simple and accessible, but also kind of old school and weird to a lot of people. So whenever I talk about play orders with the Ys games, I always say you should try Ys 1 and 2 Chronicles, but if you're having a little difficulty or it's just...
if it's hard to digest, I guess, then try another one, but if you're having fun with it, just keep going.
That's kind of the beauty of the E series. It's really accessible, and there's multiple starting points from multiple points in its history. I see a lot of friends online just saying you should play the games in chronological or release order, because that's how the games generally improve over time. They improve over time, and you can still get all the story nuances if you do replays of the games, because these games generally have an interconnected lore, even if they are easy to understand.
And at least the earlier ones are much shorter than the later ones, so it shouldn't even be too much of a trouble to...
It becomes weird, too, because there's a lot of remakes of the older games, so sometimes the recommended playing orders play the remakes before the... So, like, Celceta is a remake of 4, but you wouldn't play it as 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, I mean, in another way, like, 1 and 2 Chronicles is like, what is it, the 30th port? I don't know how many.
Yeah.
There's a lot of versions of East 1 and 2.
Yeah.
But, like, they're mostly the same, quote unquote. Like, you're going to get the same storyline and the same gameplay that's bumped.
Yeah, for a long time, the one East game that didn't have any console version was East Origin. That recently got a PS4 and PS Vita port. It's good enough. So now we have all the games on consoles and PCs, and there's a lot of ways to get into the series just as is.
Slide.
Yeah. And that brings us to the Trails series. A little history. Yeah, that's right. You're here for this, aren't you?
Yeah, some people seem to only care about
the big series.
There are other things Falcom makes.
I mean, if East is the old school series, then Trails is the new school series for Falcom, and it's Falcom's big focus, the one they push a lot.
Starting from 2004.
Starting in 2004, they put out this Legend of Heroes 6 game, Dragon Slayer Legend of Heroes 6, Sora no Kiseki FC. That's too long.
Well,
Trails in the Sky FC, first chapter. That's much better.
Yeah, FC stands for first chapter. That's all that means.
But Trails has become its own little thing, kind of separate from Legend of Heroes as we know it. It's become its own. It has its own interconnected world of Zemuria. It's, well, Henry.
Yeah, it's a single world. But each specific, there's 3 different arcs of games. The Trails in the Sky arc of 3 games that are all out on, not really console, but in PC. And the Trails of Cold Steel arc, 2 of which are out here, and the 3rd one is out in Japan. And
what?
And the 4th one has been announced. Yes. It's not released
It's
yet.
coming this year. We don't recommend looking at the promo materials for that.
Yeah, the problem with the series is there's just so much interconnectivity. There's so much, like, things happening in the world, and, like, it's got a lot of political in the world political, like...
And the second chapter literally takes place the day after the first one ends. And there's just so much... Yeah.
There's
connectivity.
Characters in politics and all the stuff within the world of Zemuria are the continent is called Zemuria, in the world of Trails.
Right. We got some screens here. That's on the bottom left. We've got just the battle system example from Trails in the Sky 3rd, which is an interesting interlude in the series. If you played FC and FC, I highly recommend giving that a shot. It just recently came out on Steam. And then on bottom right, we have the in-progress edit of the English fan translation of Trails from Zero.
What image did you put there?
And, well, we got a little surprise for you. It's going to be a little later, but it's related to this. In the middle, we've got just Trails of Cold Steel. Trails of Cold Steel 2 is going to get a PC version pretty soon, January.
Yeah,
later
but it's already on PS3 and Vita as well.
And there's no localization announcement for Trails of Cold Steel 3 yet, but I think it's
we fans assume that it's coming sometime. But I mean, we know that, like, Falcom themselves has been pushing for, like, localizations and the ability for it to come to the West. So we know that they want it.
Yeah.
So
the story of heroes, little heroes in groups of people doing their best to preserve just the stability of Zemuria and all their different countries and all their different groups. It just keeps going, and Falcom has made it their big franchise.
Trails in the Sky is in one continent. I mean, one country on the continent, and Trails of Cold Steel is in another. And the Crossbell arc, which we're going to talk about later, is in a 3rd country.
Yeah,
and it takes place simultaneously, chronologically, with Cold Steel.
Yeah, that's Crossbell does that.
And so it's It's a little hard to get into the series without knowing the best starter points. I usually say you should try Trails in the Sky FC using the turbo functions on the PC version.
Yeah,
if you have Steam, you can use the turbo function that lets you speed up battle animations and text. You can get around the overworld quicker. You do that, you'll be getting past kind of the big knockback of that game, which is that it can be a little slow at times, especially at the start.
Especially at the start. It can be like hard to get into for newcomers just because of one, it's can be slow compared to like Trails in the Cold Steel even, and it also has the drawback of like now you have to play the second chapter and the third, and like there's like so many games to it, so it can be overwhelming.
I think the series benefits from giving you so much material. You can deep read, you can really interpret without just going off the beaten path.
You can go and read books in the library in the games. It's like
lots of theorizing. We have a whole community of that.
There's one book in Cold Steel you cannot read. It's on every bookshelf. It's called Christ, Who's Going to Die Next? You can't read it,
yeah, I remember
but I want
that.
to read it. I wish I could.
Someone found a screenshot. I mean, I found a screenshot of someone finding it in Cold Steel 3 even. Like, they kept the texture.
The games have gotten... The games have also shown...
When can you read that?
Yeah. I think the games also show how Falcom's modernizing quicker than they used to. They've been having to like get into big 3D worlds and environments and set pieces that they usually were able to avoid in the PC days. Now that they've moved the console, they have to compete with other developers, but they've done that, taken it in stride, done their best. You can't say that it's the greatest looking series of games or that it necessarily sounds the best or plays the best or even has the best writing all the time, but it's really consistent.
Their goal isn't really like graphics, and that's kind of what Kondo always had said, is that that he wanted to be able to make games that he could play, that he wanted to play, and so that's his entire like mantra with this company.
That totally makes up for it with just dialogue, character interactions, how everything works together. It's an amazing series.
We got all the other one-off IPs and little series that Falcom does from time to time because, I mean, they want a break. I mean, not to dig at Sonic Team, but I think they would be better off just doing something that's not a Sonic game for once. That's why they have Puyo Puyo Tetris. Good for them. Falcom tries to do the same thing. They recently put out Tokyo Xanadu at top middle. You see, that's just one of the key arts. It's based a lot on Trails and also the Spy games, which we'll talk about in a bit. It's also, but it's its own thing. It's new. It's WoW. It's taking place in a modern day fake Tokyo, and there's conspiracies in a weird fantasy world, and all these different dungeons the main characters have to infiltrate and do weird things and fight their way through. It's also got some Persona-ish elements, character bonding that was introduced in the cross-spell arc of Trails, and so that leads to
Trails has had bonding to a degree, and Cold Steel for Find It, and Tokyo Xanadu kind of stole it, but it's like
a whole world.
Just the concept. I mean, they still had different characters.
A whole rest of the world away, you have the games on the right. On top right is one of the more obscure Falcom games. It's called Monarch. Two Monarchs. It's based on the Lord Monarch series that was started on the PC-98. It's a simple kind of RDS that's puzzle-oriented. You have a lot of different maps, and so you have to solve each of them.
Very different.
The Monarch takes it to the isometric level. That was one of their big Windows, the like 1997 Windows games. Then they made a lot of different variants, like simplified versions. They sold really cheap, but they didn't sell well. They moved on. But it's a shame, because Monarch is really cool. It's the kind of war game that they wanted to do and were good at, but never really got attention for. Meanwhile, Papa Mail was one of their last PC-88 games. They supported the NEC PC-88, an 8-bit personal computer, through 1992 alongside Koei. They were bringing that system to its very limits, and that's a screenshot, I think, of the PC-88 version. You can see that with just 8 colors and no hardware scrolling, they were able to do these really fast-paced action games on the system that looked really incredible. They really impressed a lot of players, and that's why they have a lot of fond memories. You see on occasional Falcom Twitter posts, old Japanese PC fans saying, "Oh, I remember that game. That's really cool." Then you have on left 2 games that are more recent and kind of experimental. You have Zwei 2 on bottom left. It's colorful, it's vibrant, and it's a series of dungeon crawlers. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
it plays a little bit like Tokyo Xanadu, or the
And
other
if
way
you know your
around.
German, that zwei means two, so it's 2-2.
Yeah, we tried.
But it's only because it's the second zwei game, and also the concept of the zwei game in general is that they have two characters that you play as. So
Yeah.
that's
And
where the
so,
naming
I mean,
comes from.
the premise is wacky. A downed treasure hunter, Ragna, barely survives a plane crash caused by a bunch of brigands because he's saved via a blood pact with a vampire princess named Alwyn. And they have to go off and liberate her castle, but it's not that simple. It never is. It has to end with a big freaking boss fight against a big freaking evil thing. That's the Airy Falcom game.
Yeah, that's Falcom.
That's also Falcom and Xanadu Next. But in Xanadu Next, you're exploring this
Top
whole...
left.
What?
It's in the top left, the image.
Yeah, it's top left, and it's more of a Western CRPG-like game. It's got some elements from Nox. You could also compare it to Metroidvanias or Zeldas. You can customize your character, wear different pieces of armor. You master swords and different other weapons to get skills. You could create a loadout for your character. You have your own custom, just castle-destroying, dungeon-defeating person. You go all the way to the very end to defeat the dragon, because that's what you do. There's also kind of a deep story.
It's not even a named protagonist. Like, that's kind of strange for Falcom.
Yeah, that was 2005 alongside Oath and Felghana. That was kind of one of the peak year.
Like, you name the protagonist yourself.
I guess we can conclude with Brandish 2. Brandish is another series of dungeon crawlers. It's got the weird overhead, your character's facing in the direction your character is facing, when the character turns in another direction, the whole world changes that direction.
Yeah,
looks a little
it's kind of
disorienting.
jarring.
One of the games not shown here is Gurumin. It's also a one-off thing. It follows Perrin and has some rhythm elements, and it plays similar to Ys.
Gurumin is one of the first games that actually got localized in English in the West. It came to PSP, and then it came to PC. And now
Yeah.
it's gone 3DS.
Yeah, Massive ported it to everything. Well, only 3DS and PC, but
Yeah,
like they
it's a thing.
that's
That brings us to kind of the unifying element of all Falcom games. About damn time for the music. This is some of the album covers. They've got a wide variety of tracks. We got original soundtracks. They've got super arranged albums. They've got albums featuring their freelancer band, JDK Band. They are not involved with Sound Team JDK. They just take the compositions and they arrange them on their own.
We don't know what JDK stands for.
We just don't know. JDK. I guess that's what it means. I don't know.
yeah.
So those images on top right and top right and top right, bottom right. Those are incarnations of the modern JDK band. That's the old band on top and the new band on bottom. I haven't seen a new JDK band album in a while. I'm kind of depressed. I want a new one. I hope they make one.
Remember that there's a difference between the sound team and the band.
Yeah, online I see some people confusing Sound Team JDK and JDK Band, and also the arrangers who work on Sound Team JDK music and JDK Band stuff. There's a number of freelance arrangers that Falcom works with, and they make the tracks, either just new or different, or like the best definitive versions of them. We're gonna play some tracks now because just gotta give you an idea of the wide variety of Falcom music.
East one.
Sure. I guess we'll start with East.
I guess this is East 8.
East 8, Sunshine Coastline. That's kind of the modern style. It's heavy on percussion, and just really rock and power metal sounds. They really modernized it. It's really crisp. It's kind of overwhelming. Let's go to another one. That brings us to... Now we can go to Zwei, something from the Zwei, the very first Zwei game from 2001. This was a big game for Falcom. It kind of brought them back to making... Not found?
Is it the YouTube?
It should be YouTube.
Oh, it's because you did a...
Well, let's just do the next one.
Yeah, let's skip that for a moment.
It's a YouTube broken link. We got another broken link. This is from Brandish, the Dark Revenant. This is arranged. This used to be an FM synth track. It was done with FM synthesis. Now it's orchestral. This was originally composed by Miyako Ishikawa. We deduced that me and a few Falcom super friends are just figuring out who composed which track. One of the things about Falcom music is albums don't list specific track credits for each composer. So we don't know which of the composers did which track. And so we have to try and figure out, just do detective work, who has this style, does this track fit this style? Good, does it have these instruments? Okay, it's likely this person. And there were two musicians on the Brandish soundtrack from 1991, Ishikawa and Shirakawa. We think it's her. We're gonna have like 2 or 3 more examples. Just a reminder, we do have an audience, little participation thing, and we're gonna have a little FAQ going in 15 or 10 minutes before the end of the panel. All right, let's show off Mega Drive.
OMD.
Yeah. Back in the early 1990s, they did FM synth music.
Mega Drive.
This is from the port of the original Legend of the Heroes, the very first. It came to Mega Drive. It's better. I like this one. Let's go to the bridge. That's one of their FM synth tracks. That was by Hirofumi Matsuoka. And then, let's go to Trails at Sea. Trails in the Sky, second chapter. We've got kind of mid-2000s style. This is the overall theme. I hear this a lot.
You'll remember it. You will remember it if you play through the whole trilogy.
I like to dabble in acoustics and more laid-back arrangements from time to time. And all the composers are pretty good at that at this point. Do we have talk recognition?
No, I don't know.
All right. I'll just take the YouTube ID. Like, you just copy paste that over.
Yeah.
Oh, is it? No, not that.
Oh, it's just.
We already did that one. Come on.
Yeah, we'll just skip it. No.
Or we'll skip it.
I don't know why.
We can actually go to a fan arrangement now because there's a number of those. And this one actually was submitted to MAGFest 2011. It was for OC Remix. They have a big presence here, so.
Yeah,
All right, and that video. And then there's a number of these 3. This plays in the mountain level.
Yeah, but it's a fan arrangement, right?
Yeah. One thing I don't understand is why there's no Falcom band representation at MAGFest. I want to see bands at MAGFest doing
Yes,
Falcom
please.
If you know anyone.
If you go to any of the band panels and you ask, what are the things that you want to hear from bands at MAGFest, or just from us in particular, stand for Falcom. Falcom music is so varied, so cool, so melodic, so catchy, and there's just so much material they can work with. I want to hear that stuff.
Yeah, there's a fan channel on YouTube called Falcom Music Channel, and they've uploaded like thousands of tracks, like literally 6,000 or something like that.
And it's done through their free music use policy, which allows basically anyone to use their music in a professional setting. You just have to okay it with them, but they don't really charge.
Right. And so there's a lot of, you just get the permission, you can use it in commercial areas as well. They're not going to litigate you. I know that some Japanese developers and publishers are sticky about that. They're not. They're casual. And they're proud of their music. They know it kind of brings attention to them no matter where it happens. We have just a bunch of, like an overview of the games we have in English so far.
Yeah.
And we've got a little fun thing to show off. We've got some game demos we can do right now. Want to load it up?
I guess.
So we mentioned that the Crossbell Arc of the Trails series still isn't in English. That's not technically true. There's a leaked version. There's a leaked beta patch of the Zero no Kiseki translation game, but you don't want to look at that. It's really got grammatical issues and it's not tuned. We have been working, or I know a few people, me and Ribos, have been working on the edited version of that patch.
Yeah, I'm along with OMG Floofy and Guan and Zerker have been working on the translation for the editing of it because.
We just gotta get on the screen now.
No, it's only on this screen because.
Well, let's figure it out. Here it is. Let's get the plan. Lion's share of the work, we credit the lion's share of the work to Supreme Zerker, who has been editing the Japanese script or the English script into something.
Yeah, it is mostly translated. I mean, it's like 90%, 100% translated. It just needs editing badly, and he did that.
And so not everything is done, but a bunch of the text has been completed, just fully edited. We can show off just the opening right here, right now, because we can. Just for the rating that was on that slide, there are current fan translations that have recently released, like Brandish 2 on PC98 came out. And if you have a copy of that, you can rip that to or floppy emulate it on your PC98. There is an ongoing fan translation for Legend of Xanadu 1 and 2 on the TurboGrafx 16 CD, which is 1994-1985 action RPGs.
Oh, it's down there, actually.
And this arc in particular it's taken almost 8 years for it to come over here in English. It's really exciting to see it come together.
You can see we got the names and everything even translated.
Everything in this opening should be translated. Later on in the game, there will be some text like item strings that are still in Japanese.
Well, that's just not inserted. It's mostly it's 100% translated. It's just not. Yeah, I guess we can. I mean, there's a 100%. I mean, a 50% edited video out there when it got to that has this section.
We did some voice testing as well.
Yeah.
And that's just an FMV.
I mean, in the hacking of, when we took over the fan translation, we got things like the fade outs and stuff work much better than they did in the original PC version. That would have slowed to a crawl when it fades out every time, but now it runs smoothly and 60 FPS and everything.
That's just a little taste of that. If you're interested, you can actually YouTube Trails from Zero, search for that, and there'll be more of the opening just translated and edited for English, finally. We have a little audience game. Who is interested in trying to beat a boss, a really hard boss from the very first D's game? 1, 2, 3, 4. We got like 5 or 6 minutes because we're running up on time for QA. I don't want to go over. Which of the 5 like really think they can beat Dark Fact on normal? East One Chronicles. You'll be using a PS3 controller. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, y'all come up here. All right. So we're gonna load this. We're gonna load up our save, and this has retries. Whoever gets the closest to beating Dark Fact, or whoever.
X and O. Don't worry about it.
All right.
You don't need to press X or O during a fight, so it doesn't matter.
Just make sure that
you just walk upward just to the platform.
All right. Get this started. First up, we have to.
I mean, there's a cutscene. It'll talk a little, so
You can skip through that.
yeah. Once. Yeah, just hold it down and it'll skip that, and then you get to see this.
All you have to do is run into them.
The fun thing about it is, yeah. So first of all, oh, it goes away. The whole thing about it is you have to run around and touch him as he's throwing everything at you. And you basically just keep moving. Yes, I believe so. It has to be. And remember, there's rocking music in the background to hype you up. You separated the sides. Yes, this is Falcom for you. Dark Fact says evil things. Yeah, Dark Fact says evil things. You hit back. It's on the 5th screen. Yeah, go to load. Files load. Shift page bottom.
There you go. Go up.
Yeah, don't hit title screen. That was pretty good. I think I got about there when I was in testing this morning.
So if you get on the first medium, congrats.
Yeah, it took me, I don't know, like 30 tries. This is normal. Like, apparently it's harder. This guy's crazy. I mean, it's probably tied to the frame rate at 60 now. I don't really know. Yeah, I hate getting stuck in the corner. Like, I have a screenshot where I was stuck in the corner for like...
I don't remember how I did this on Nightmare, but I did.
Like I said, you're crazy. I mean, that's why his username is Bumpmaster, because he loves this shit. I mean, I had the strategy of like going with him when he's coming back. It's actually surprisingly effective. But yes, there's lots of things to dodge, including the holes he makes. That was close. Another hook. Yeah, we got 10 minutes, it looks like.
It's hard. It's not usually this hard, though.
I mean, yeah, this is one of the hardest bosses, and also you had a whole game to practice usually. Which is, I don't know, what is it, 8 hours, 5 hours of gameplay? For the original East 1. And then East 2 is longer, like, and...
Oh,
oh, you got trapped! You got trapped! Oh, man! Oh, man, that was close.
You got close. Dang it. Alright, that was fun. Alright. I guess, I mean, you want to look at that for the rest of the night? If you have 10 minutes, you can just look at that the whole time. We've got like 8 minutes for Q&A. Does anyone have any pressing questions? Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Depends on your play style.
The Trails series.
Wait, I gotta
definitely.
repeat the question for the stream.
Right.
So about Trails of Cold Steel, how long it takes, how you can be 80 hours in, and it still doesn't seem to end. I've taken up to 110 hours on that game, and that wasn't normal. And all I can say is it does. I mean, it's really, if you're really into just the overall cycle of the game, going from the school, the military academy, talking with NPCs, to the events, into the battles. I know.
Yeah, he says there's so much game.
Yeah,
yes,
I think it's worth just leaving some things for repeat playthroughs, or if you go back to, you take a save of that part of the game, and then you just hurry along with the plot. That's what I've done on a couple of games, and it's helped me keep my pacing together. You can sort of self-pace with Kiseki, or Trails games, Kiseki's Trails.
Kiseki means, is what they, Trails is what they named it in English. So.
Are you, what system are you playing on?
Yeah, he says he has it on Vita, and he's going to get it on
Vita, it can be a little slow. On Vita, it doesn't perform super great. On PC, you also have the turbo function. Turbo makes a massive difference. I think it really helps.
Yeah, Durante did a crazy job on the Cold Steel ports.
Yeah, in case you're all interested, if you all follow PC gaming ports in general, and like how Japanese developers and publishers, or even just localization companies, are adapting to the modern Steam landscape. Durante, the guy who fixed Dark Souls and many other games, he worked on Trails of Cold Steel PC. And
he was officially porting it. He wasn't just doing a fix.
Yeah, so Xseed Games, I mean, they've been localizing Falcon games for a long time and doing a bang-up job, stellar job bringing them to English. Now they're doing a great job making them better games in general.
Yeah, they have a lot of passion, so they said, okay, let's find someone who can fix this, because I want Legram at 60 FPS.
I think for your situation, what chapter are you in? If you're in a late chapter, just like, if you want to skip NPC text, it's fine. Okay, level 6. Okay, you're at the Ruhr chapter. Yeah, Ruhr chapter also is a bit more interesting. It's just in terms of plot. So you'll get past that, and then I'll bring you to the last kind of slow stretch of the game. Once you're on the last floor of the old schoolhouse, things get really crazy, and they will. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, that's.
At least there's a retry option that makes battles easier. If you just want to slum it, I mean that's what I did a couple times. Who's next? You. All right. Is East 7 or 8 a good starting point? East 7 and East 8 are great starting points. East 7 on PC is probably the one I would recommend. If you want a portable, it plays well on PSP, or to get it on PS Vita, it downloads your Vita. And East 8, it's on PS4 and PS Vita. They are doing a relocalization of that game for a wide variety of complex reasons. I don't have time to go into it. You might consider wanting to.
Tis a silly place.
Yeah, you might want to consider just waiting a few months until the PC version comes out, because that's going to coincide with the localization redo, and that'll make the story a lot better in terms of presentation. Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah, I remember that.
Okay. Right. Yeah. So about Kondo being asked to help remake Sorcerian or get Falcom to remake Sorcerian, and what games would you like to see remade? What about you, Bump? We want to see remade.
I want to see White Witch being remade. I've played that on PSP and PC, the Japanese PC version, and I thought it was an excellent game. It's Legend of Heroes 3. It's the first one of the Gagarv trilogy.
That's the one Kondo would probably want to get remade first, considering that was like his whole thing, and he's probably still says it's his favorite game.
In terms of games I want to see remade, I would love, because a lot of their games are older, they're kind of hard to get into these days because of just outdated quality of life and mechanics. I want to see extra remakes for the Brandish series. I want Brandish 2 remade, I want Brandish 3 remade, I want them to revisit Brandish 4, because they did Brandish the Dark Revenant on PSP, and that didn't sell too well, but it deserves a lot more attention. I want a PC port of that. I want people to get into this dungeon crawler.
The Dark Revenant remade the first Brandish from a long time ago, and they remade it in like 3D using the East 7 engine or something, and it was like all better graphics, and it had like an animation for rotation and everything, and it was, some people argue that it's slower, but honestly it's better overall.
What do you want to see remade, Rebos?
I mean, you answered Brandish, and now I'm out of things.
All right.
But maybe, I guess Xanadu next. I don't know.
Sorcerian, definitely. I want to see a new version of that. They have a lot to remake.
Like there is a sequel to Xanadu.
There is a
next,
remade version called Sorcerian
Xanadu's
Original. It has it's for Windows. It has the 15
Tokyo
remade
Xanadu
scenarios,
did its own thing, for
and
example.
also includes Sorcerian Forever. I hope Xseed or some other company can localize that for PC. It's kind of niche, but it's also a really neat series. Did I miss any questions? We got 2 more minutes. Yeah, that's right. Oh no, TSO. Sorry. For me, it was, I first played...
Just say it out.
Yeah, for introduction, my first introduction game to Falcom was East 1-2 Chronicles. I played that on PC in 2015. Then I played Trails in the Sky FC.
Yeah, I played, I was really into Atlas at the time, and this wasn't even that long ago. It was like 2.5 years ago or something. And somebody recommended Trails in the Sky first chapter for PSP. And I didn't know there was a PC versions at all. I didn't know anything about Falcom, so I tried this, and like from there it was like, then I was waiting for second chapter to be localized, and then I was waiting too long, and I started playing it in Japanese, and I was like, didn't really get anywhere, but from there I really liked Falcom, and of course have played them since.
My first introduction was Trails in the Sky first chapter, and nobody recommended it to me. I just saw it on sale in the Steam sale, and I was like, this looks interesting. Started playing it, couldn't put it down, and then fell in love.
What do you know? One more question. Yeah.
So, kind of an easy one, maybe not. If you guys have to pick just one, what would be your favorite Falcom game?
That's not an easy question, sorry. But I'll try it. My favorite at the moment, it's usually
Your
just
favorite
it's
at
like
the moment.
it's like the one I just played. Spy, the Ovard Insurrection on Windows. It's on Steam, GOG, Humble Store. It just came out. It's actually Spy 2, but it's it's a standalone sequel. You don't need to play the first game. The first game is coming out
Yeah, it
this
should
year.
be visible on that list, actually.
That game is really good. It's really funny. It has an amazing localization and is just a really surprisingly good story. I like the plot a lot. I like the characters. It has a decent amount of challenge. I'd highly recommend that.
How about Zero no Kiseki?
Why not?
How about English games? How about Trails in the Sky the Third? That's a pretty good
Yeah.
game. It's solid gameplay and everything.
Mine, I can't really decide between the
Yeah, very
three
good
games
story.
in the Sora trilogy or the Sky trilogy. They all do things I really like.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we like about Falcon games. They all do things we really like. We're going to wrap this up, and just big shouts again to... One more question, quick.
Yes, who's
The
your
Bard of
favorite
Love.
Falcon,
Oh, man,
character,
Olivier.
and why is it Olivier?
If you ever played Chosen Sky FC, or if you ever played it, you got to know Olivier. You got to just stay on top of that guy. He's a little shady, but he's all right. And he's just really funny. He's a creeper, but it's okay. But it's not really.
He just wants to marry Joshua, don't you know?
Princess Joshua.
Princess Joshua.
Well,
It's-
yes, especially
all right.
Princess Joshua.
It's 2:30, and we got to wrap this up. Big shout-outs again to Kirsten Miller for helping us. Big shout-out also to Cullen. He is doing a panel for the Side Adventure visual novel games. It's going to be in panel 4. What's up, man? And it's going to be at 3:30 to 4:30. It's coming out really, really quick. Just go around the hallway, and you'll see it. One last thing, we're obligated to mention that there is a feedback section on Guidebook. If you're using that app for MAGFest, just use that. Just tell MAGFest how the panel went. If you liked it, you want to see more of this stuff. Cool dog. We got to get going. You all have a great time at the convention. I hope
If you want to
enjoy this
see us
panel live.
again, join the Discord.
Check out
there's a
Reddit
Falcom
Falcom.
Discord that I created or something. I don't know about it.